morning. Welcome to Viewpoint, your program of personalities, politicians, and perspectives. And today we certainly do have a couple of nice personalities and a perspective or two on what's going on in Logan County. You all remember that you do remember, of course, it's so important, that we always try to start Viewpoint with a kudo. This is a personal one. I note, you know, a lot of times when things go to pot on us in some old building or something, people just kind of, oh, well, that's too bad, let it go. Our good friends Joyce and Jim Clockengay over at Inman had a windmill that had been up for forever, and they lost it in a storm. And it's just going to say, shrugging it away, said, well, that's too bad, it'll just have to lay there and rot. They did something about it because it was so significant to Jim's family down through the years, back into the 1800s. And they opted to find somebody, and they did. Happily, these internet things work pretty well.
Oh, yeah.
And they came up with a gentleman from up around Peoria somewhere, I believe. Doesn't make any difference. And he came down, and I'm sure at considerable expense, those things had to be expensive, restored that. And it's up and running. So I just thought it was pretty neat. So I just said to myself, oh, well, just make a kudo to Jim and Joyce for making that commitment to history. And knowing Jim's lineage, and Joyce's too, for that matter, I'm not surprised they did that. That's my speech.
Well, that was a very nice speech. Thank you for sharing.
Well, the old saying, little things mean a lot, by the way.
And they do. And they do. You know, if you've got something that's been in your family, it's so meaningful. And if you don't take care of it, whether you've got new things or old things, pretty soon you don't have it anymore.
Well, that was pretty neat. Anyway, that's a new landmark restored up there in the prairies of Emden. I noted in an obituary that my friend Walter Berger, and they used the adjectives integrity and morality. And in lieu of the way our legislature has been acting down there and continue to do so, I thought, what a sad thing. They don't know the meaning of those two words. All of them. I don't, party aside, all of them. I would have put them in a sack and shake them up and reach in and come out with the worst one. It's incredible. The shape that we're in, and they can even sit down and work out. They just won't sit down and talk with one another. So anyway, enough of that. Why don't you introduce our guest? I don't want to get carried away here. I already have.
Well, you're welcome to get carried away. I don't think that they'll fight you for it.
How about it?
We're going to talk about pigs and swigs, and that's pigs. A very fun thing that's coming up for us all.
I knew about pigs early in my life and swigs much later.
Yeah, well, pigs come before swigs, generally speaking. And Chris Graue and Michelle Bauer are with us, and they've been working long and hard to get this all put together. And we thank you for coming out and talking with us this morning.
Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, we appreciate the opportunity.
Now, tell us the who, what, where, when, and why.
In that order.
You go first.
Well, the who, there are three components to the festival that happened this weekend. It starts on Friday and runs through Saturday, so June 3rd and 4th. There are three components. There is the KCBS Up in Smoke on the Square barbecue event. There is the Young Professionals Craft Beer event, which is the Swigs version of the festival. And there's also family fun events that are happening down in Scully Park. So we've added some new things to the festival this year. Chris's barbecue group has added new components to their portion of the event, so we're just looking forward to having everybody come out. The Swigs version of things starts at 6 o'clock on Friday with our first entrance into the craft beer tasting events. Those events happen, we have, 11 distilleries and breweries with us this year, which is
That's pretty
amazing
big.
for our second year of doing this, of hosting this event for us. Your entrance is one of two ways. If someone wants to come in and purchase a $20 wristband, with that wristband they would get their entrance, which is a $5 cover, a $10 souvenir tasting glass, and 10 tasting tickets, which are $1 a piece. So basically a $25 value for $20. If
Can't
you aren't
complain about that.
I think so. I think it's a pretty
reasonable.
good deal. If you're not someone who thinks they'll use all 10 of their tasting tickets or are really excited about having the glass, which is pretty phenomenal actually, you can pay the $5 cover and then purchase all of the tastings and everything else a la carte, so to speak.
Okay.
But you're drinking out of plastic, and if you're a craft beer snob, you know that you don't ever want to drink craft beer out of plastic. That's not the deal.
Never drink out of a plastic.
No. We do that at 6 o'clock on Friday night and then 6 o'clock again on Saturday night. But our Saturday day event works a little bit differently. Saturday day starting at 11 o'clock, there is a no cover admittance, so you just have to be 21 to enter. There's a bags tournament that begins at 11. There's a homebrew competition, and if you want to know more about that, I can explain that later. That starts at 11. And then from 11 to 4 then, we, out of the YPN craft beer draft van, will be pouring full 12-ounce pours of beer for $3 ticket. So similar to kind of how a normal beer tent kind of feel works. So you can get a $3 ticket that gets you a full 12-ounce pour. We close at 4 for a special VIP event. The VIP event is very exciting this year. Hilltop Catering out of Elkhart, along with Spirited Republic, are going to partner together, and they are going to match 4 small 2-bite tasting portions of food with beer that is associated or would pair well with that type of food.
With that type of food.
And so from 4 to 6, if you add basically $10 to your $20 ticket for Saturday night, it's a $30 ticket, but it gets you that. It gets you your t-shirt for the event, and then gets you in early for the rest of the event that happens on Saturday night from 6 to 11. So you'd still get your glass, your tasting ticket. So instead of $20, you pay $30. You get in 2 hours early. You get the beer and brew, or the brew and food, or brew and chew tasting together.
Brew and chew.
Yeah, right.
Like
and then your T-shirt. So basically, for $45 value, for $30 to come in and do the VIP. We're only selling 75 VIP tickets, but we're very excited to offer that again this year. It went over really well last year.
Are they going well so far?
So far, so good. Just sent out a big email blast, put some things out on Facebook. You can get those at the, you can get them in advance over at the Chamber Alliance office, or you can come up to my office at 120 South McLean and pick them up at my office.
That's your insurance office.
That is. But I'm not here to plug my business.
Well, I
today.
just I thought it appropriate to
I
mention
appreciate that very much. But yes,
We're
120
going
South
to talk
McLean.
about the USA and your Chevrolet in a little bit.
Yeah,
so.
okay. Well, there you go. Well, if you need insurance for that Chevrolet, you know how to call, right?
Seriously, how many? You said the numbers of vendors that you have, and from whence do they come? Around? What's the farthest one?
We're basically using Illinois breweries, and we did that
I see.
specifically.
Uh-huh.
That's who we targeted. We do have one brewery, Urban Chestnut, who's out of the St. Louis area.
Uh-huh.
They're a little bit more what I would consider mainstream. They're pretty popular. People have heard of them. But we have J.K. Williams Distillery out of Peoria.
Yeah.
And we have Blom Brothers Distillery out of Galena, Illinois.
I went to their
thanks
distillery
Chris.
up there in Galena. We were up there for New Year's Eve, and come to find out, it's the Blum Brothers family from New Holland.
Is that right?
Relatives in New Holland.
Is that right?
Jeff Plum's one of my best friends. I went to grade school.
Yeah, well, now, isn't he in the
college.
wine business out in California?
He is. Yes, he is. But really interesting that these guys are coming to our event, and just thrilled that they're going to be here. And they have kind of a neat situation with one of the things that they sell at their distillery. They have a bourbon called Notter Bourbon, which is not our bourbon. They started a distillery and they wanted to start selling retail, so they bought a batch of bourbon from another distillery so that they could start selling it, and they bought it aged. So they really didn't want to say that it was theirs because they had not distilled it at their distillery, so they named it Notter Bourbon. And I've had a couple bottles of it at home, and it's quite good. Very good.
And Spirited Republic is now carrying their products uptown as well. So it's very cool that those two distilleries have agreed to come. Kind of diversifies the event a little bit. And then we have Rhinestone Brewery out of Illiopolis, White Oak Brewery out of Normal, Illinois, Distill Brewery out of Bloomington Normal area, Rolling Meadows out of Springfield, Ale Syndicate, which is out of Chicago, Timotheus Brothers, which is a new brewery out of the Springfield area, Hand of Fate, which is in Petersburg, which just opened their own brew pub, which is really, really cool. So those are our breweries that are coming along with the distillery. So we're very excited to have them.
You've got quite a few more this year than you did last year.
Yeah,
That's
almost
really
double.
Grown.
Build it and they will come.
There you go.
Okay.
And they did.
That's what happened to smokeless, or up in smoke. That's the way that has evolved. We're going to get to the pigs, or the pigs. We're going to stay with the Swigs right now. Michelle.
Yes.
What time will these vendors be open now?
So the breweries themselves only pour from 6 to 10:30, or the 6 to 11 time slot. But we then, as the YPN group, have 2 draft vans that we will pour either the full 12-ounce pours from 11 to 4 on Saturday, or also the 1-ounce pours in the evening. So we specifically put on our van stuff that's a little less, that has lower alcohol content. Craft beer tends to have a higher alcohol content. So if you're drinking a light beer, a Bud Light, they're 4.5, something like that. Sometimes even less than that, 3.5. Craft beer sometimes will go upwards of 9 to 11% alcohol.
You must be cautious.
So on
pace
purpose,
yourself.
Yes.
So on purpose, we make sure that those are 1-ounce pours or just small tastings, and that people can kind of exactly pace themselves through that event, because 10 tickets is basically 3 full beers, and 3 full beers at 9% is like 5 or 6 beers. That rate.
Now, do you have security roaming so an old codger like me gets carried away?
We do. I have a tremendous volunteer staff and a tremendous group of coordinators that work with me through the YPN group to help make sure this event goes as smoothly as possible. And there will be several of us walking around in bright blue polos, and so we would ask anybody if they see anything or need anything that they grab one of the blue polo folks and let us know. But yes, we've talked to Chief Adams, and he's going to have extra,
he's a great guy.
extra patrol around the square.
The thing I want to mention here, ladies and gentlemen out there, 648-5510, you might have some questions of Michelle and or Chris. This is an interesting weekend coming up. But what I want to stress is that in both the Swigs part and the pigs part, there's a lot of preparatory work that's gone in. This just we didn't turn the switch on these people all of a sudden decide they're going to come here this weekend. So this started planning how long ago?
Our group started meeting just after the first year. We had a couple wrap-up meetings right after the contest last year to kind of talk about things that went well and things that we can improve on, but then we started meeting right around January 1, and we met every month until 1st of May, and then we've been meeting every single week to make sure that we got everything ready to go.
In case anybody didn't recognize those stentorian tones, that was Dinah Shore's favorite poster child when she was singing "See the USA" in the Chevrolet, Mr. Chris Graue.
Thank you. I got an interesting story about "See the USA" in your Chevrolet here in just a couple minutes.
Yeah, well, why don't you pursue that?
Well, my dad passed away 7 years ago, May the 15th, and the day before he died, he kind of came to and sang all 4 verses of "See the USA" in your Chevrolet without any kind of sheet music or no lyrics.
That's remarkable.
Is that right?
It was
touching.
What
a story.
That guy was. He was, I'd like to say true blue Chevrolet, but it's actually true gold Chevrolet because of the gold bow tie.
Yeah.
Blue was Ford, and he was not a Ford man. He was actually Chevy.
No.
So,
well, that's very
interesting.
That's very neat.
That's a neat story.
Now, let's get technical a minute. If a stiff that doesn't barbecue very much, Chris, decides he wants to throw something on his barbecue, number one, he'll want to use a real barbecue, that is the charcoal and wood not the propane.
Well, way back when I was little, when I was growing up,
boy, that is a long time ago too.
at 16 St. Andrews Drive, when my mom said we're having barbecue tonight, we were going to have manwich or sloppy joes. My mom made some really, really good sloppy joes, and then after that, when I got into high school and into college, if we were going to have barbecue, it would be barbecued chicken or chicken cooked on the grill with barbecue sauce put on the last couple minutes. True barbecue is a very large piece of meat, any large cut of meat. Ribs, chicken can be barbecued, and we'll get to that in just a second, but true barbecue is cooked low and slow at a temperature between 235 degrees and 250 degrees for a very long period of time. Most people, when they're going to cook a steak, or they say, well, we're going to have a barbecue and we're going to have steaks, they're actually grilling. When you're going to cook brats can be barbecued. They can be cooked indirect in smoke, but once you put them on the coals, it's actually grilling.
They start grilling, right. What would be the prescribed choice of meat in your mind for an amateur barbecuer?
Pork butt. Pork butt or pork shoulder. And it's going to be difficult to find pork shoulder. The pork butt is the top section of the front haunch of the animal. The whole shoulder is the whole section without the hoof from the animal. And the reason why it cooks so well is that when the hog walks, obviously the front section, the front haunch, is what's getting the most exercise. As the pig walks, those muscles are moving all the time. So every move he makes, that shoulder or that butt's moving, so it becomes very, very gristly, a lot of connective tissue, a lot of collagen, and the only way that you can get that to break down is you have to cook it for a very long period of time, and it's a pretty sizable piece of meat. Most pork butts are about 8.5 to 12 pounds, and a whole shoulder can weigh in at 22 pounds. So the only way that you can get that to cook is to cook at a very low temperature for a very, very long period of time. And once you get it to break down with the flavor of any injection that you put in, any rubs, and then the taste of that smoke that permeates into the meat, once you get it broken down and you get the internal temperature over 190 degrees, you've got something really good. Now,
are you making notes, Mrs. Busby?
No, I'm just sitting here being stricken.
If you can fog a mirror, you can cook pulled pork.
If I can do what?
If you can fog a mirror.
Fog a mirror?
Yeah. If you can breathe.
Why, George, I can do that.
And probably the best.
Not as well anymore.
The most versatile piece of equipment that any backyard, either griller or barbecue, could have is like a Weber kettle. You can do pretty much anything on that you would do on a full-size grill. The only disadvantage to a Weber kettle is every time you pull the lid to add more charcoal, you lose all the heat.
The heat goes out,
So, but you can set things up. You can do a couple different things inside that cooker to really get a long cooking time with the charcoal that you've got.
Now, you mentioned a little minute ago about the indirect cooking. Does that make your offering closer to barbecuing than grilling?
Yes.
When you do it indirect?
Yeah, there's like if you had a Weber kettle, if you're going to grill something, you could put all the coals right in the middle and cook right over the top of that.
Yeah.
If you bank the coals over to one side, you can have two different temperature zones where you have direct heat that's really high, would be 800 to 1200 degrees right over the coals, or over to the other side, which would be as low as 200 degrees, depending on how you set the cooker up. And if you're going to cook pork butt or pork shoulder for pulled pork, you'd set it up, all the coals over to one side, a water pan, and then some type of foil to protect the meat a little bit, because one side's going to cook faster than the other. And then you just let her go and refire it with charcoal, and it'll take probably 10 hours for it to cook in a Weber, but the internal temperature is really important. You have to push it up to 190 degrees to get it actually cooked inside.
Do you know how much sleep I'd lose to put something on for 10 hours?
Well, there's a wide margin of error when you're cooking barbecue too. If you miss it by 2 hours, you just let it go a little bit longer. It's easy. It's not that but there's steps to everything. Cooking pork shoulder or pork butt isn't the same as cooking brisket. Beef brisket's probably the hardest one to cook.
Because why?
It's just a very finicky piece of meat. There's a lot of different things that happen to brisket as it cooks, but that's the one that I kind of cut my teeth on when I kind of got this fascination for barbecue 15 or 20 years ago. And we've got a pretty good process. Matter of fact, we placed 8th out of 58 of the best teams in the country at Murfreesboro last year with our brisket recipe.
Wonderful.
Now that's interesting.
It was our first top 10 call, so it was like a personal best.
Yeah.
Fantastic moment last year.
Well, that's the interesting thing to me is that these cook-offs that occur around I presume it's mostly around the Midwest, or does it go further to
more concentrated down in the South?
In the South.
Kansas City Barbecue Society is in Kansas City, Missouri. It's kind of Kansas City is kind of the culmination of all different facets of barbecue, where different parts of the country do different things. If you're on the eastern coast of the Carolinas, it's all whole hog and vinegar-based sauce. As you move across the country, when you get to the middle section or the western part of the Carolinas, it becomes ribs, whole shoulder, and pork butt. And then the sauce also changes from either vinegar to a combination of vinegar and tomato, and then mustard. And as you get to the Mississippi River and moving farther north, the spices increase in the sauce because of the spice trade that goes up the Mississippi River. Now the whole hog thing starts in the eastern North Carolinas, because when they shipped them over on the boats, they were whole. They come off the boat. Okay, let's cook the thing. So the whole hog starts on the eastern coast, and then as they're processed, they have to transport it. So they would slaughter the hogs and then transport them, and then obviously when they move farther west, then they would become the individual parts of the hog that's already been slaughtered. Then when you move to Texas, it's all beef, sausage, and beef ribs, because beef is really big in Texas. Then you get up to Kansas City, where all the stockyards are, where the railheads are. It's everything.
Now, do the participants in the Pigs and Swigs have to be members of the Kansas City Barbecue Society?
If they're gonna accumulate any points in the KCBS yearly points run, they do have to have a KCBS number. But anybody that wants to come and cook in the contest can come, pay the entry fee. If you're cooking all 4 categories, you're in. You just won't accumulate any points for the contest.
And there's no using Sweet Baby Ray's, is there?
You can if you want. If that's what you like and that's what you think's going to win,
work with it.
I have a couple personal favorites. We have a concoction of 3 different sauces. They're all commercial sauces that we use. Blues Hog is my favorite sauce, and we use a combination of that. Blues Hog Tennessee Red, and then also there's a sauce from Tennessee from Mark Lambert that we like. And you have to have it something a little bit different. If everybody uses the exact same sauce, which my favorite is Blues Hog, all the entries taste the same, so you have to differentiate yourself a little bit from everybody else.
Well, you know what I'm going to do right now? Mrs. Busby's feverishly writing notes on this, and to give her a chance to catch up with your conversation, we'll take a short commercial break, and then Mr. Ash will bring us right back, and we'll light up another fire. Back live here in the studios of WLCN 96.3, which you already know if you're tuned in. And if you're not tuned in, we urge you to adjust that dial. No, seriously, 648-5510. Michelle Bauer and Chris Graue are with us today, talking about Pigs and Swigs. And it's an interesting combination. And Michelle has worked real hard on getting the Swigs part lined up. And when did you first start this, Ms. Bauer?
Well, when the Balloon Fest and the festivals were expanded to go across several weekends, part of the conversation that we initially had was how do we support the barbecue, and Young Professionals Network is a small version of the chamber group. And so what we were trying to figure out is how do we support the barbecue event but not take away wine was already being done with the Arts in the Park venue. And what barbecue and beer, I mean, it's a natural thing. But craft beer is a real big movement. It's really started, you're seeing these small breweries pop up all over the country. It's a unique, it's very much so like the barbecue, where everybody's got kind of their own spin on it. Everybody knows what's in a Pilsner, but how do you make a Pilsner better? Everybody knows what's in an IPA or a pale ale, but how do you make it unique to you? Similar to if you're going to cook a a piece of barbecue. It's the same piece of meat, but how do you make it flavored to your liking, or so that it wins or it stands out? So craft beer was something that was interesting to us. We thought that it was something that wasn't being done south of Bloomington at the time. Now Springfield and Bloomington both have craft beer festivals that happen, which is actually really positive for us because that trend kind of gets us some traffic. But we were really looking at how to do something that pairs really well with this event, and beer was kind of a natural thing. The other thing is that we can do very similar things as far as the homebrew competition, as far as judgment is concerned, or judging beers. So your backyard barbecue, backyard brewer kind of folks can come in on Saturday morning and turn in up to 4 beers in 6 different categories, and they are then judged similarly to the way that the barbecue is judged by a panel of judges for body and flavor and carbonation and all of the factors that go along with the particular kind of beer. And then we will award a winner in each category, as well as an overall best in show for breweries, or for the homebrew qualifier. So it's very cool. My husband's a part of a homebrew club. They are also part of a craft beer club that works very closely with Spirited Republic and the guys uptown to kind of help perpetuate this movement, or this kind of excitement. It came from
nowhere, didn't it? All of a sudden, I never heard of craft beer. Where I grew up, they had 3, 2, and strong beer. Yeah. That was it. Yeah. Choose your pick.
Yeah, it's a West Coast thing that's kind of very much so, and northeastern United States. You see a lot from the Colorados, California, Vermont. It's a very earthy, kind of crusty movement, if anybody understands what I mean by that. It's very no frills, no fuss, just trying to make something a little unique and different, not, mass produced.
Well, I think
the addition of Spirited Republic downtown. Have either one of you guys been in there yet?
Oh, gosh, yes.
I think it's just
that's my next door neighbor.
He's crusty.
He's crusty. No frills. Very much so, those guys.
That's number one. Aesthetically, what they've done to that building is just really, and if that building were in a large, let's say in a near north side place up in Chicago, it would just be gangbusters.
Well, it's gangbusters.
It's gangbusters right now here locally. It's wonderful to walk in there and see the crowds that are there.
Yeah.
And by the way,
it's bringing in different people. We used to go out in Lincoln, and just because of our age, things change.
Yeah.
No offense to any of the establishments in Lincoln, but there's been different times where we've been at the high school at plays, or we've been to a basketball game. Hey, let's stop at Spirited Republic on the way home. Yeah. And we're seeing different people our age and older that you normally wouldn't see at a bar in Lincoln that are in there enjoying a craft brew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And between that and the new theater and Deep Roots, the new little cafe, and the established ones, Gazzardo's and the Blue
proximity to Gazzardo's is ideal
downtown, which is fantastic.
By the way, I'd like to announce that so far I haven't bought a beer there.
Everybody's bought you a beer. Yeah. That's how it should work. That's how it's supposed to work.
With your age,
how good is that?
That's probably a good thing. You've earned your
But it is a really, aesthetically and artistically, it's a success. And then the other side of the business side of it, it's an interesting business to see on the south side of that square, and it's going to grow more, and they're going to be able to put their own brewery in there soon, I think, as I understand it. And I wish them well, because it's an interesting place to take somebody from out of town.
Sure.
Well, their 3-bean vanilla stout won best beer of the entire festival last year. Out of all of the rest of the breweries and the established breweries that were there last year, what will now be Limerick Brewing once they get up and going, their 3-bean vanilla stout won the whole best beer. And so if you walk into Spirited Republic, behind the counter where the taps are, you'll see the bottle pig. The trophy from last year's event.
I didn't realize that was the trophy from last year. I just thought it was sitting there just as kind of. Something new every day.
They won best
We're
beer.
supposed to do that, Chris. Learn something new every day.
What's the 3 beans with beer?
You would have to ask them what the 3 beans they used with them, but I'm guessing it's a vanilla bean, a coffee bean, and maybe a chocolate bean, or some chocolate of some sort. That's my guess. But those would be, and so when you, and I'm going to butcher this, so I'm not even going to come close to trying to describe it, but when you start to make a batch of beer, it has malt, it has hop, it has grain of some sort, and it's how you boil all of that together, strain it, then it sits, it ferments, it bubbles, the yeast moves off of it. It's a 2 to 3 week process, because then after it goes from there, it moves from that into the bottling phase. Then it sits in the bottles. Then once it's in the bottles, it goes into the fridge before you can then open it. So it's a process the same way. And from a batch of beer can take anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks up to a month and a half to actually get to what it's supposed, the end result of what that particular beer is supposed to be.
I'm sitting here open mouth. I didn't know she'd learned that much since she left us
knows her stuff.
on Lincoln College. She was such a, and I mean this seriously.
They don't call her the Swig for nothing.
And it's not because I taste everything, because I don't like it.
Well, I'm happy. I don't want to get too flowery about this, but Michelle did a great job for us when she was working with our students at Lincoln College, and she's been missed, and I'm happy to see her move into her new career now, kind of fill in her daddy's seat in the insurance business, and that's very neat.
Lincoln College will always be the place that allows me to cut my teeth.
You're still a supporter and a big helper out there. Yeah,
absolutely.
But I didn't teach you that when you were up there, all about this craft beer
No,
stuff.
it's a dry campus. I didn't learn anything about beer while I was at Lincoln College.
I'm not sure it was particularly dry per se.
But no, it's been great.
Now, have you run into any? Almost inevitably, there'll be a snag or two as you begin to plan. And go ahead, zero. Chris is saying 0.
This is going to be the mission without a hitch.
Isn't that amazing?
Wonderful.
The snag is that we want everyone at home and who's listening to do whatever rain dance you can to avoid that for Saturday.
But
really, that's nothing we can control.
When we start now,
what we need really is everybody in Lincoln and Logan County that's listening to this right now to come downtown, call your friends, call your family, call your relatives, call your best friend, call your worst enemy, and say, let's go downtown and check out this festival that's been put together. The reason why we do this is to get more people into Lincoln, to stimulate economic development and stimulate tourism dollars. And we have a true love for barbecue. They obviously have a true love for craft brew. Come down and enjoy them both together. When are you going to ever have an opportunity to be able to enjoy those two together? We have a couple other things that, once we get back, when Michelle's done, there's a couple crowd interactive things that the people can come down and actually partake in competition barbecue where they haven't been able to before. That's a new addition.
We have several different thrusts with the barbecuing. They don't all have to be going for their Kansas City barbecue points. You have for children even.
We have Kids Q that's going to happen on Saturday. We have 2 age groups with that, 7 to 11 and 12 to 15. For a very modest entry fee of $30. They get a pound of hamburger, they get a 9x9 turn-in container, they get a grill filled with coals ready to cook, and they bring whatever they want to put this turn-in tray together. That's it. That check-in's at noon, and we still have spots left. We have spots available for 20 teams. I think last count, we had a dozen signed up, where last year I think we had 14. So we're pretty confident that that's going to fill up. Anybody that's got a child that you want to do something fun and something new, this is your opportunity to come to downtown Lincoln and cook. And the kids will actually be recognized along with the professionals at the awards ceremony on Saturday at 5 o'clock, which is kind of neat.
Yeah.
We have something brand new. This is the first year that we've done it. We have a sanctioned steak cook-off that's sponsored by Cresco Labs that just started business here in town, where anybody that has a charcoal grill, either a charcoal grill, a Weber, a pellet grill, that wants to come and cook. Unfortunately, we're not allowing any gas grills. It has to be wood-fired, fired by charcoal, wood, or pellets. Well, for a $75 entry fee, you'll get 2 prime 16-ounce ribeye steaks from Lincoln IGA. You cook them in downtown Lincoln, you turn them in at 7:30, then you have an opportunity to win part of a purse of $1,250 that's sponsored by Crisco Labs.
That's pretty interesting.
That's replacing our Anything Goes that was the shish kebabs with watermelon rind.
Right.
We tried and tried and tried to get that to go, and we weren't satisfied with the participation. And once Jim Bishop and I competed a number of times last year, we figured out that we were asking the teams to do too much. They just simply don't have time. So with the steak cook-off, they're committed to 12 or 15 minutes. They're done. They're over. They turn their steak in. There's no garnish. There's no topping, and it's not garnish optional. There is no garnish. We want the steak to stand on its own, and then the steak will be turned in, and we're going to have about a 50-50 split between experienced judges and other judges.
Street judges.
We've asked our upper level sponsors that sponsor the barbecue contest to sit in and judge, but we'll have experienced judges along with them, and we'll do some training with the sponsors to make sure that they understand how to judge the steak. Then the next thing that we had a lot of comments and a lot of people that kept questioning, well, why can't we test or why can't we try the competitors' food? And unfortunately, the KCBS teams that come are there to compete. They're not there to vend. And because of the health department regulations, they're not able to pass out or give out samples. And plus, it's prohibitively expensive to just give away samples. So what we've done is we've added a People's Choice contest to the backyard. And the backyard teams can elect to do People's Choice. It's a bragging rights contest where each participant or each person that wants to participate in sampling, you buy a wristband for $15. For $15, you're going to get 11 tickets. You'll get 10 tasting tickets where you'll be able to go from team to team to team and sample ribs. You'll get 1 ticket, 1 rib. After you sample your 10, then you decide, well, I liked Mike Prince's, or I like Doug Ritterbush's, or I like this guy's, or I like that guy's. You write that team name on the ticket, and then that goes in the voting bin, and then we'll tabulate how many votes, who got how many votes, and then we'll name Logan County's rib champion. That's being kind of orchestrated and done by Life Point Church. And if you go to the grocery store and look at what a rack of ribs costs, 10 ribs for $15, that's a bargain. 10 cooked ribs. You can't even buy a raw rack of ribs for that. You still have to do all the charcoal and all the sauce, all the rub.
Prepared for you to eat.
Exactly. And we're going to have those tickets, those tasting tickets will be available at the vendor area starting sometime Friday morning. There's going to be 60 wristbands sold. Once the 60 wristbands are sold, that's it, because we have a certain number of teams that are going to be cooking. Life Point Church is donating the ribs, 4 racks of ribs for each team that will be cooking ribs for People's Choice. So we have to back into the number to make sure that we've got plenty to go around.
You know, an interesting side issue on this, Chris and Michelle, is I've made it a point down through the years, as they've been coming, to visit with the vendors, the cookers, for want of a better word, and ask them, how long you been coming, or how do we treat you? Oh, always a positive response about our community and the way you're running things there, and I think that's important.
Well, I want to make a kind of a comment about the relationship or the cooperation that we've got from YPN. The spirit of cooperation and collaboration between the two organizations has been fantastic. We've had some issues where we've had to kind of rearrange things, and when I've come to Michelle and said, we got to move a little bit more. We've had to move down Kickapoo Street to accommodate our tent. A couple weeks ago, we went down to measure things out, and we thought Kickapoo Street was 70 feet wide, and we come to find out it's 57 feet wide. And
well, that's quite a difference.
We need 56 feet to put this tent up. So our 70-foot wide street is not 70 feet, so we had to turn it east to west, or north to south instead of east to west. Went to Michelle and said, we got to move a little bit more, and she was okay. That's fine. Everything we've asked, it's been yes, and we want to. If those guys do well, we'll do well, and vice versa.
And I think that was the point of this whole festival for us, Chris and I, who not only have businesses here but are very involved and want to see this impact Lincoln in a positive way.
Yes.
The addition of the rib opportunity for people to sample. We also heard last year from folks that they really wish there had been something more for their kids to do. They came down, the kids walked around, if they weren't participating in the kids queue, there wasn't a whole lot to do. So the Chamber and the Alliance group has added a petting zoo down in Scully Park. There'll be a face painter down in Scully Park. That's where the kids queue competition is, so we'd encourage them come to watch their other friends and come down and watch the other young people participate. But there's also House of Bouncers, which is a huge display. I think four to five different bounce house kind of things that the kids can do downtown, and that can make this maybe a little bit more family friendly or a collaborative event where it's not, just about adults,
right.
and make sure that local families and families that come in from out of town can participate in all of the festival. So we're very excited about that. And Chris's group has been really easy to work with as well. It's nice from our standpoint. This is their, you said 6th year? This is just our 2nd year. So we're still working out the bugs from last year into this year. It's been great to be able to work with Chris's group that's established, and they've been able to say, we know that this will work here and this won't work here, and we can position you here, and this is where you're going to have the most availability for power, or etc. They've kind of done this a while. So it's been a great partnership between the both of us to be able to kind of, like Chris said, have 0 hiccups at this point. So
I'd like to mention, she mentioned Power. Eaton Corporation here in town is one of our sponsors, and they're good to support all of the events that happen in Lincoln.
Yes.
Anytime we need anything, we're able to ask them for these power distribution panels and these disconnects and these meter sockets. We've been able to put in quite a tremendous infrastructure downtown for power to be able to power these different events, and they're actually the third Friday events that they're doing now. The city's actually asked to use our infrastructure to power that, which of course we're going to say, sure, you betcha, tell us what you need. Yeah. But all of these boxes, if you go downtown Lincoln and look around and look at all the temporary boxes that we've put in, all of that's supplied by Eaton Corporation. Virtually anything that we need to make this thing happen, it's sure, whatever you guys got to have to make this happen.
Yeah.
And it's been like that with most everybody in Lincoln. They want to see this thing happen. They want to see this continue to grow. We had to shut our registrations off yesterday for KCBS because we filled up.
That's wonderful.
We had 40 teams last year. We've got over 50. We may actually have, I think we may have 51. One that we forgot.
Yeah, right.
Well, bless your hearts.
Yeah.
Talk is cheap, but you didn't just talk the talk. You guys are walking the walk, and thank goodness. Lincoln, when I came here, was such a vital part of the world. It was really a going place, and we kind of had a little slip there. But you young people who are in there with both feet.
But you guys look at what we've got with Spirit Republic and the new theater and all these other little things that are happening downtown.
Yes.
People are making commitments to Lincoln that, are pretty encouraging.
The spark, the embers are beginning to glow a little brighter.
Economic development is alive and well in this community. We have to continue to do things
Alderman Bauer,
support it.
we thank you very much, number one, for your service to our community.
You're very welcome.
In that capacity. We thank you and Chris Graue for being with us this morning. What time do the folks want to start wandering down there to begin to see a start of the action?
Well, we have street closure at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, and then the teams will start rolling in. We'll have one team that'll show up probably at noon tomorrow. But things will start to roll. If people on a lonely Thursday night, you want to come downtown, we'll start placing vendors at 5. We'll start placing teams at 6. We have street closure at 4, so anybody that has a vehicle that's downtown, especially parked around the square, around the courthouse,
get it out of there.
Please, by 4 o'clock. Yeah. We haven't had to tow anybody yet. We sure don't want to start, but...
Well, Jim Ash is sitting here wide-eyed because the clock went past 9 o'clock, and he's gesturing me so to get this thing closed down.
We have 3 other meat categories we have to talk about.
Okay. And there's plenty more beer to discuss.
There was an ancient philosopher called Voltaire. He came from over around New Holland and Burkeville, I think, anyway. And he said eons ago, if barbecue did not exist, it would be necessary to invent it. So thank you, Mr. Voltaire. Thank you, Michelle and Mr. Chris Graue.